This week, New Japan returns to Chiba for Yuji Nagata's Blue Justice show, celebrating his anniversary as a pro wrestler. That show will also serve as an appetizer for a very strong King of Pro Wrestling card. With King of Pro Wrestling, Royal Quest, and historic crossover all in the near future, angles are being done across the Bushiroad universe to set wrestlers on collision courses that'll eventually lead to Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. We're going to take a look at all those and more. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am here in my Blue Justice blue today. I'm sporting the colors for Yuji Nagata for his anniversary show coming up. Jeremy's got the Lions Pride mark on him. So we're ready. And this past week, of course, if you want to hear our coverage of the event from Kobe, you can do so. That is a separate show that hit the podcast feeds and here on YouTube. So you can hear us break that show down match by match. There were some interesting developments there. We had more interesting developments throughout the week. So we are setting up for Justice, which sets up King of Pro Wrestling. And all of this stuff feels like a set of dominoes just slowly toppling over as we get closer to Tokyo in January, doesn't it?
3 months away. 3 months away. G1 was 6 weeks ago. We were talking about 4.5 months away from Wrestle Kingdom. Have a bunch of these matches going down. It really did help to have like a basically 2-week vacation from all New Japan events that all of a sudden it's like you blink and here you are again. We have some stuff to talk about. But yeah, we got out of Destruction Kobe. Generally liked the show. Thought Yoshihashi and Finley, you should come back and check out our feedback on that one. But yeah, we're on the road to Wrestle Kingdom, man. We're 3 months out. Bunch of these events all seem consequential. We're gonna find out who's going to be IWGP champion going into Wrestle Kingdom, more than likely in the next 2 weeks. So I'm here for it, man. Time.
Colin is here. Colin, good to see you. Venkin is here. Glad you're here as well. And to all of you that are watching live, we're grateful for your time. So we're going to talk Blue Justice first of all, and that's the next show that's coming up. And it is consequential because there are, we mentioned the new member of TMDK. There's a couple other things that are previews that are setting things up otherwise here at this Blue Justice show. And this is all we get, by the way. There are house shows coming up this week. I'm going to list them off after we talk about Blue Justice. But it goes on New Japan World as far as what we're able to watch. It goes from Blue Justice on Sunday to next thing is the King of Pro Wrestling show the following Monday. And then that's about it. USVA guy is here. He says, too much craziness going on. Help me. It has been a little hectic. No question about it. And Colin, you mentioned something. Yes, we will be talking about Clark Connors appearing in Stardom at Gorkin Hall. All right, so Blue Justice. We're opening up with a tag match, which is an interesting one here, isn't it? We have on one side of a trios tag, we have a member of the Never Openweight 6-man tag team champions, a older young lion, and a younger young lion on each side. So on one end of it, we have Toru Yano teaming with Shoma Kato, who's the more experienced of the young lions, and Masatori Yasuda. On the other side, they're wrestling Bolton Oleg and Katsuya Murashima, the more experienced one, and Daiki Nagai, one of the less experienced ones. That's an interesting little twist there. I kind of like this. This will be entertaining.
I put all these cards together, right? I put all these images together, but I do my best to not pay attention to what I'm actually looking at, just making sure that it's the next one in order. So I'm actually processing this as I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I have no recollection of putting this match on this thing. And you're explaining like, yeah, that's really fascinating. And like Bolton Oleg and Yano on either side. And I'm looking at it like, I have no memory of this whatsoever. So I'm just laughing at that and just kind of stumbling like, oh, this is going to be that kind of show, huh? But
yeah. And Nagai and Yasuda are essentially doing the same thing that a lot of young lion tandems have done in the past. Certainly, what was it? Tsuji and Uemura did this, where they're at the same level, right? Debuting basically at the same time, and they're just wrestling to 10-minute draws, getting the reps, and the story being that one is trying to separate themselves from the other, and they can't quite do it yet. Like no one's really set himself off from the pack. And really, if we haven't seen a whole lot of separation between Murashima and Kato either. So I guess that this is all about young lions. I'm kind of curious to see who gets the pin on who in this match. I have a feeling it's young lion on young lion violence here, or it's going to be Bolton just grabbing somebody and finishing him with a kamikaze. But I am curious to see who ends up doing the job. My guess is one of the youngest of the young lions, but we'll find out together.
It'll be fascinating to see how they approach an older young lion and a younger young lion in the ring with each other. Whether the experience is going to be apparent or a little or more subtle. It does seem kind of funny though that we are. I don't know if funny is the word, but I'm thinking about 5 years ago in New Japan a lot based off of some of the videos I've watched. Yano's kind of graduating into that tiger mask, Tenzon, that role, that role, like the opener role, a little bit more defanged than he was a couple of years ago. Even though Yano's been pretty defanged, even the comedy has subsided significantly, and he's going back to a bit more traditional wrestling. I think we're going to see a lot more of this, man. Like Yano being that wrestler and graduating into that role, and I think we got to get used to it.
Aging out, he's in his 40s as well, so it's hard to say. So also, it's interesting here. Kato and Murashima have expanded repertoires compared to the other two. They're allowed to do more moves. They've been in more matches with regular roster guys, main roster guys. Of course, Nagai and Yasuda are still at that stage where they have only the bare bones to work with in the ring. The Boston Crab, the drop kick, the chain wrestling, and that type of thing. So it'll be an intriguing contrast there. But I also think that Yasuda and Nagai, in some ways, have shown a little bit more expression and a little bit more charisma than the older two lions in their matches. So I'm curious about this one. Like I said, usually these things are just like, well, a young lion's going to get beat and we'll move on, and hopefully nobody gets hurt, and it's just some practice for him. But I'm actually intrigued by this match. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bolton Oleg looking good at the very end in some way, shape, or form.
Seems logical to me. Up next. Now, okay, speaking of other things affecting other things, the set of dominoes I mentioned earlier. In Tamashi, which is the Oceania promotion in Australia, you had Caveman Ugg and Bad Luck Fale wrestling on those shows together. Caveman Ugg's been around for a while, but we haven't seen him in New Japan very much. Now, Ugg got a pin on Mikey Nichols, and that will lead to a title match at King of Pro Wrestling. And Josh from We Work Stiff, who's been on with us before, the We Work Stiff podcast, terrific one, out of Australia, our friends there. And he mentioned that his one criticism, and he's absolutely right, of Tamashi is that the storylines seem to happen independently of anything in New Japan. Like nothing in Tamashi really affects anything that happens in Japan. And to a greater degree than Strong. Like Strong has some tie-ins. Strong weaves together a little bit, but Tamashi not so much. Could be changing because Caveman Ugg got the pin on Mikey, and now poof, Fale and Caveman Ugg are challenging Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste for the tag team titles on King of Pro Wrestling show. So lo and behold, those shows start to matter. They start to weave into canon for New Japan. I think it's a step forward. So here we have Bad Luck Fale. Haven't seen Fale in a minute. Teaming with Ugg and Taiji Ishimori. So the Bullet Club guys who aren't quite War Dogs and aren't House of Torture either, teaming up to face Nichols, Haste, and Hartley Jackson, the third member of that version of the TMDK crew, in a preview for that tag team title match coming up.
I am oddly looking forward to this because it is the opportunity for Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste, for the most part, of being the veterans on one side of the ring and Ishimori and Fale on the other side of the ring. It's going to be a lot on them to run this match. Just Haste and Nichols are going to be the generals in this. And I'm just very curious about their ability to, compose all the disparate elements of this match. Because this is a weird one. in a lot of ways. You know, like you're bringing in a lot of people that are familiar with each other, but we're not familiar with them. And translating that into a wider audience, even though it's the King of Pro Wrestling and not, you know, a bigger show, this will be a test. And I'm curious.
And Venkin just says this tag feels weird. So Bullet Club and House of Torture. Well, I don't know if none of these guys are really in House of Torture right there. So, yeah, it is interesting. Caveman Ugg good enough to get booked at PWG at various times in his career. So he's pretty good. We'll have to take a look. And hey, Colin's happy to see Hartley Jackson. And Dunstan mentions this. He said this feels like a last minute change due to Lee's injury, and they didn't have any other challengers available for him. Maybe it could be something like that. But if it means that they're going to start paying a little bit more attention to Tamashii in terms of making it part of New Japan, they really should. There's people over there. You know, Robbie Eagles is part of Tamashii. Hanare works with Tamashii a lot. There are plenty of people who could make that a thing that affects the New Japan canon. Would do nothing but help Tamashii and the workers over there in Australia, I think. So,
you know, Jake Lee being out makes total sense, but you know, this business has been built on the opportunity of next man up. So maybe Caveman Ugg does something, you know, truly transformative with his career given this opportunity.
Yeah. And Dunstan mentions that they have had years to do something with Tamashii and haven't. Maybe this is the start of them actually doing something with it. So, you know, Robbie is certainly a part of New Japan canon, and there are other people that could be. So maybe Ugg's good.
Also, October. You introduce these guys in October. They may not win a tag title match, but they'll be around in November.
Tag tournaments are coming. Both of them. Yeah. And Colin said, I forgot Fale is still part of the roster. Yep, still is. Still training people, I believe, in New Zealand. That dojo has had its issues.
Training?
Well, yeah.
I've heard rumors.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, that seems to have been a troubled dojo at various points there, but yeah. Next up, we have a preview match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match at KOPW. That's Doki, and he's going to be challenged by Sho. They transitioned to Sho from the Kanemaru thing. And this will be Doki and Taka Michinoku from Just Five Guys against Sho and Uncle Nobu. So should be a pretty decent match, but strictly a preview here.
So if you got to heat up Sho real quick, what do? Beat Taka.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, that is strictly in service to that match. And then after this one, we have a little bit of a service to the TV title match that's coming. So we have two of the three participants anyway. Yota Tsuji, and he's teaming with Hiromu Takahashi to face Jeff Cobb and Jacob Austin Young in a tag match that's, again, like we mentioned, basically a preview of the TV title match that's coming that should involve Ren Narita.
First off, I have to give you your credit.
Oh, thanks.
On the Sunday show, we had the conversation about the TV title match. And we went on and on about how I wanted to keep it pure and keep it a one-on-one match. And you said, no, I really do feel like it could be a three-way with Ren Narita and Jeff Cobb and Yota Tsuji. And I was like, da-da. Kick out the show. It was a lovely rant on my part. Turns out, Steven was right. And now we're on the build to a three-way for the TV title. I don't love it, but I respect it. It's fine. As for this match, I am tremendously looking forward to it. Basically, because I love three of the four guys in here, and Jacob Austin Young has done nothing to convince me that he is not talented, and I can get there with him as well.
Bengen says he saw Cobb's backstage comments on this one with the whiteboard, and yeah, okay, he put together a little whiteboard thing. It was entertaining. Yeah, it was entertaining. All right. Next one. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tomohiro Ishii, and Shota Umino against House of Torture, Evil, Yujiro, and Dick Togo. Another chapter in the whole saga of House of Torture versus Tanahashi, President Evil versus President Tana, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get another chapter of it here at Blue Justice.
What was the feud that we went 995 rounds of earlier this year with the House of Torture and LIJ?
Just Five Guys in LIJ. Remember, it was Sonata, Taichi and company versus Naito and company until the end of our lives.
This is the yin to the yang.
Yes, Dunstan's on it. He said it leaves this match 1,222 between these factions.
They put a brief pause in it during the G1 since Tanahashi was not in it. And then they brought it back at the very end of the G1 as if nothing had ever been missed in the first place. And, I very much look forward to this feud ending at Wrestle Kingdom because I have a feeling I know what the Wrestle Dynasty match with Tanahashi is going to be. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah. But, two different big shows to sell. So, big
this is going to be a fine match. This is not one of the consequence matches. They got Shota Umino paired with Tanahashi in a number of different ways upcoming. It's supposed to give you that vibe of where his status is in the rub. But this isn't the most exciting version of this match. I feel like when you have Dick and Yujiro in there with Evil, it's not the best of the best of House of Torture. And yes, I know we're haggling about what the best of the best of House of Torture is. But Ren Narita is the best of the best of House of Torture. Like Evil is the best of the best. And, Showa Kanemaru, that's where we're at. And when the other guys are there, it doesn't feel like they are as dangerous of a faction.
Denson says, can we just have Shota feud with Ishii and then give him something to do? Another vote, perhaps, for the Shota Umino heel turn that might be coming. Who knows? People seem to be feeling that.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no hint that this company is giving whatsoever that made people think that maybe Shota Umino is having a hard time reconciling being a good guy right now.
All right. Up next after this one, we have a 10-man tag. Now, a couple people we haven't seen in a minute. I'm happy they're back. But again, we have a couple of different title matches being previewed in one here. So on one side, you have the War Dogs, and that's David Finlay, the global heavyweight champion, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney, the junior tag contenders, with Gabe Kidd and Gedo. And then on the other side of it, you have the Chaos Hantai group, and that's Goto, Yoshihashi, Honma, Kushida, and Kevin Knight. So we will have the junior tag team title match previewed. We will also have the global tag team title match, or global heavyweight title previewed in this one. But it's an all skate, by God, and Honma and Gedo are there to protect the rest of the crew.
I'm trying to look up right now when the last time Kushida had wrestled like Impact and all that stuff, because he's Impact all the time right now, and Impact is not really working with like New Japan at all. So I'm curious.
Mostly working with NXT.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like I said earlier, I didn't really look at these match cards. I'm like, maybe I should have done a little bit of research, but my life has been pretty chaotic, everybody.
Yes, it is.
And I'm trying to just keep up with everything. And the fact that I even have analysis for New Japan makes me feel proud about my responsibilities to everybody. But I was looking at it, and he's around, but he's not doing anything special. So if he didn't end up like with Impact, or he was off the books for a while and doing the Super Junior Tag League with Kevin Knight, I'm here for it. And I'm loving October being the reintroduction of a bunch of people we haven't seen for about 3 or 4 months. They've been operating pretty lean with a core group of guys. You haven't seen a whole lot of Bullet Club outside of, the few big guys and the main guys, and the junior heavies that weren't Akira and weren't for the title wasn't happening. And so we're getting back to it. And I'm hoping maybe we see Watto soon. And I'm hoping we see a couple of these other guys. That it's been a while. And this match gets me excited because it's fresh faces in a fresh configuration. And it's a nice breath of fresh air from the previous match, which is the 1000th meetup between House of Torture and Hantai.
Okay, so we'll see how that one goes. Next up, we have now we have LIJ against TMDK, and this time the lineups are Zack Sabre Jr., Kosei Fujita, and Ryohei Oiwa, who were their own class of young lions for a while there. And they will be facing off with Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi, and Bushi. And this is the 4-way flavor Tokyo Dome type of setup. And what I mean by that is we have the World Heavyweight Champion, Tetsuya Naito, his challenger, Zack Sabre Jr. We also have never Openweight Champion, Shingo Takagi, challenger for him, Ryohei Oiwa. And at the end of the Destruction in Kobe show, all 4 of those guys standing in the ring, you get very strong vibes of a couple of years ago when it was the Intercontinental title and the world title involved with 4 different guys going into the dome. So this could get very interesting. And Bushi's here to protect, but.
So I'm looking at this and I am so excited because even looking at this match graphic, guys, the Ryohei Oiwa picture makes him look like the biggest babyface in the world. And he's got like the black hair and he's got the highlight for the long hair. And he just already projects like an aura that has been basically paved by the other young lions of his generation coming in and like setting the path. And now you just like, that there's a legitimacy to this. And I am pretty excited about that part. I know Steven had a thought that he had to break away from real quick. So I'm going to let him take over and go over that.
Well, I feel like this has extra spice on it with Oiwa's addition to this. This just feels like in a group that already has a really strong roster of wrestlers. TMDK is even stronger now. Going up against a faction that also has a crew of very, very strong wrestlers. I mean, you look at this. I mean, TMDK, the tag team, Oiwa, Fujita, Zack, and these are phenomenal wrestlers. And then on the other side, Bushi's a good worker. He's just not protected. But you have Shingo, Tsuji, Naito. The combinations that these 2 factions can bring to Hiromu, good Lord, against each other is pretty exciting. You can add Titan in the mix for a good chunk of the year as well. So we talked about whether Oiwa will be better off served in his own thing or whatever. But here he is. He's in TMDK. He was the mystery partner. He was X. Since we got him here, let's do some really exciting, fun stuff with it. And LIJ and TMDK has a lot of combinations that work for really good matches. I've talked about how I think Kosei Fujita is the future ace of that junior heavyweight division. I feel very comfortable saying it. And the idea that Zack has a Shingo now with Oiwa that really works as a singles and in these types of matches. This is great. I'm in. I'm very happy about it. I'm very fascinated to see where these guys go. It has also put that doubt in your head about King of Pro Wrestling. I honestly don't know who's going to win that damn title. I'm not going to be thinking about it until our preview next week because that whole thing where Shingo, Naito, Zack, Oiwa all standing in the ring and Hiromu at ringside at the same time. Remember at the end of it, he's sitting there, Naito's just saying, hey, I want to defend the title against Shingo. I want to defend the title against Hiromu. All these matches are coming up. It's like, is Wrestle Kingdom, instead of being Zack and somebody, is it going to be Naito and Shingo fighting over the Never title? Is it going to be a world heavyweight title situation with LIJ? This could go a lot of different interesting ways. So, and this will just be one step. We're not going to find out at Blue Justice. This is not what they're going to tell us where it's going. But the match should be good, and maybe we'll get a hint.
There is so many things that they can do with that main event title. I'm definitely leaning towards Zack because at this point, if you don't belt him, there's a lot of damage that can be done to him that not necessarily you can get back if you were to do one more match at Wrestle Kingdom for the title in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. We're going to talk about that next week. There are other things about this match that get me super excited. Just wondering if Shingo and Oiwa is the match where they're going to pivot and put the younger guy over at some point. I also think about Fujita, and I think the dream match one day that we will all rejoice when Fujita and Taiji Ishimori have a singles main event match in a consequential position at some point, which is going to be amazing. There's so much future with this match, with so much talent stacked at the top of the card. Just low key, just so much going on with this.
And then Dunson says, I'm glad KOPW is selling well, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not that excited for Zack versus Naito. Zack will win, and then my interest will come back in terms of the next direction. Again, I was more sure about Zack winning a little while ago than before that angle at Destruction in Kobe, where they had Naito talking about, it planted the seeds of doubt. They could still absolutely go with Zack and then have the LIJ thing we talked about doesn't really need the World Heavyweight title because the interest in seeing those guys against each other would be there. But there's a lot of possibilities, but it did plant the seed of doubt as to what they're doing with that. And you always have to keep in mind, too, I try to remember this, that New Japan has a safety blanket issue with some of this stuff, where we talked about how they always went back to Okada when Okada was in the company, how they could always go back to Hiromu and things. Sometimes they just feel better having their top Japanese guy in the big spot. And will they kind of chicken out a little bit on Zack and just say, well, we got to have Naito defending the world title in the main event. We have to. It's the Tokyo Dome, I'm not saying I'm listening in on those conversations and hearing that, but there is evidence in the past, and slightly different regime now, admittedly, but there have been evidence in the past that sometimes they run back to their safety blankets. So, and Benkin mentions, didn't Shingo get that never title back recently? Yep, he just beat Hanare for it at the show there in Destruction in Kobe. But the never openweight title has a history of being bounced around, and this could be
the hot potato never openweight title.
Yeah. And then Benkin says maybe Shingo's become the safety blanket for the never belt. I absolutely think he probably has. I think he's one of those guys you could always put back there, and it makes sense. He's going to give you a good match, and it always has credibility. Yep, I think that's exactly it. And let's see. And Dunstan says, I can't blame them for wanting to protect the gate, but I think Zack wins neither a Young Star challenges while Naito Hiromu main event. I'm on board, and I think that still might happen. I just say that we're talking to that they're. When he had that whole thing in there with Hiromu and Shingo at the end of Destruction in Kobe, it just felt intentional. But that might be a way to kind of distract us. Like, they know they have an idea of what we're thinking. And so they're going to try to confuse us as much as possible before they deliver here. So
how many title changes do you think that the never titles had in 2024?
Oh, goodness. Okay, hold on. So Shingo beat Hanare. Hanare won it. And then there was that. There have probably been 4, right? 5?
There have been 6 title changes.
6. Daggone it. 6.
Tama Tonga dropped it to Shingo Takagi.
Yeah.
And then Tama Tonga won it again. Okay, no. Tama Tonga lost it to Evil. Evil lost it to Shingo. There you go. Yeah. Shingo, Tama, Evil, Shingo, Hanare, Shingo.
Because wasn't it Tama won the thing at... Where did he win the thing and then said he was leaving?
He won it in October in Texas, I believe. So it might have been 5. But he won it at Lone Star Shootout, and then they did hot potato back and forth with each other.
And like he had a retention or something like that at Kingdom, and then afterwards said, I'm leaving
Finley for it. That's how Finley lost the never title, and then Shingo and Tama flipped it back and forth a couple of times. Then Evil got his hands on it. Then Shingo and Hanare flipped it back and forth a couple of times.
So there you go. They could absolutely change it again. And yes, he left after Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah, that was his thing. I'm out of here. He just said he was going to leave the company then. So all right. Well, what's the next match? So we talked ourselves in circles there. It's the main event. So this one is Yuji Nagata, of course, our promoter, and the Blue Justice in the Blue Justice event. Teaming with Jun Akiyama, an all-time legend, guy that works a lot with DDT now, but of course, All Japan, Noah, just all-world guy. They are going up against Go Shiozaki, one of Noah's very best, Atsushi Katoge. Yes, these guys are long in the tooth, but all 4 of them know how to work. We'll see what their bodies are still capable of. Nagata's is better than most at his age. Akiyama's not as good as some others at his age. He's taken a lot of it. That New Japan or All Japan style was brutal on people. The original King's Road style, it was rough stuff. And Shiozaki has not taken it easy throughout his long career either. But Akiyama can still wrestle. Shiozaki can still wrestle. Katoge, I'm sure Akiyama is smart enough to do what he can do well. Sure. So it should be entertaining.
You're talking this up. And this is a charity show. This is the Yuji Nagata charity show.
No one's going to kill themselves in this. Yeah.
For Blue Justice, this would not be the main event of the show. This would be
no.
3rd or 4th on the card. This is here because this is his show. This is the Whole reason why everyone is here. Totally fine. But the work rate and the semi-main is probably going to be, in a lot of ways, the true main of the show. And this is to send the people home happy. Yes. And totally fine with that. And that is what this show is. If you feel like you want to contribute to the charity that Blue Justice is doing, go on to X, go to the Twitter link. They'll have stuff there for what Yuji Nagata is doing. At the end of the day, can't complain when it's all about charity.
No, you cannot. So, yeah. All right. So let's move on to, let's talk about the house show schedule, because we'll have that one. That one's on Sunday. And then the house shows move on to Shizuoka on Tuesday, October 8th, Saitama on the 10th, Nagano on the 11th, Ibaraki on the 12th. None of those are going to be on NJPW World as it stands right now. They're all preview, multi-person tags. I think the only singles matches on any of those cards are set to be Nagai versus Yasuda in the opener, the Young Lion match. And here are some of the previews, though. It's LIJ versus TMDK trios on top all the way through. Mostly, and then you also see War Dogs against that combination of Bishamon and Antai, as you would imagine. You'll also see Tanahashi and company against HOT, and then and company, I mean, depending on the night, Shota Umino, Honma, Yano, that type of thing. Hiromu and Mystico will be in preview tags against each other to get ready for the King of Pro Wrestling match. So Mystico not on Blue Justice, but he's coming in for several house show events just to kind of get the feel of everything before the King of Pro Wrestling show. So it'll be Hiromu mostly with Bushi teaming up against Mystico and other juniors.
God, I'm so excited for that match. I can't believe
that match is happening. TMDK, I mean Nichols and Haste against members of Bullet Club, and they're teaming with other members of TMDK against combinations of Bullet Club guys, and just 5 guys versus House of Torture in the junior heavyweight section. So that'll be Doki and company, probably Taka against Sho, and probably Kanemaru going around the horn. There are various combinations of that, though. So, but for NJPW World, to go straight from Blue Justice to King of Pro Wrestling on Monday the 14th.
Awesome. Are we ready for the quick overview of the matches announced? Because we are not actually previewing this right now.
No, that'll be next week. We're going to get there a little closer to the event. But here is the lineup for King of Pro Wrestling. And the key matches, Mystico against Hiromu Takahashi and the Yes Please All Day Every Day. Can't wait.
Yay!
We'll also see Kevin Knight and Kushida against Connors and Maloney. That's the IWGP Junior Tag Team title match.
Yay!
It'll be good. We will see Caveman Ugg and Bad Luck Fale challenge Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag titles.
They have an opportunity to impress me.
Shingo Takagi, Never Openweight Championship match against Ryohei Oiwa.
This is so far down on the card when half the time a match like this would be the semi-main event. That's how excited and how stacked this card is.
It's a loaded show. Three-way television title match. Ren Narita, who is not on many of the previews, so I think they're hoping that he heals up fully, and they're kind of keeping him in bubble wrap until this one. Challenging Jeff Cobb for the TV title, along with Yota Tsuji. It's a 3-way TV title match.
Not in love with it, but I can learn to love this 3-way.
And then after that, we have a trios match here with El Phantasmo, who has joined up the cause with Hantai, teaming with Tanahashi and Shota Umino to face Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So you do have a couple of the good workers from House of Torture in this one.
33% of the images in this slate are outdated.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, you're right. They went with some old stuff in that one.
Shota Umino and El Phantasmo in this slate have decidedly old looks, and their new looks actually make them look like they are brothers to each other.
Also true. Yeah, that's true. That's more like, I got to replace that Tinder profile pic. You're right.
Hey.
All right. You know that whole thing where you show up, you're like, I don't know. I've never online dated, thank God.
I will tell you, I met my wife through Tinder. So
did you?
I did.
So it does work.
We met and we got married through Tinder.
I met my girl at a bar, old-fashioned way.
Well, how about that?
I know.
You wouldn't find me at a bar, so that's probably not.
Well, yeah, that would hurt your chances, admittedly.
Really would. Really
All
would.
right.
Also, not going to find me in a bar now because I'm married and I am.
Yes, you'd have some splaining to do. Up next, we have the junior heavyweight title. That's Doki against Sho, and which would be a terrific match. Like, I know that there's going to be House of Torture shenanigans. There always are, but Sho's a hell of a good wrestler.
This feels so much like a box check-off list for Doki and his title reign that I'm having trouble even formulating more thoughts for next week.
And to answer a question that just came over, yes, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight match is currently listed as match 7 out of 9. The never openweight title match, 4th out of 9, underneath the TV title match and underneath the Hiroshi Tanahashi 25th anniversary match. We should have mentioned that. That was the 25th anniversary match for Tana earlier there. So yeah, Doki higher up on the lineup than Shingo right now. They're treating that IWGP Junior Heavyweight title like a big deal. And it's underneath this one, though. It is global heavyweight title match. And, of course, we saw David Finlay just coming off a hell of a good match with Yoshihashi. He now takes on Bishamon partner and the man who beat him in the G1, Hiroki Goto.
I'm going to veer off a little bit. Does the global title just feel like the Intercontinental title at this point?
Yes. Well, they never should have gotten rid of the damn Intercontinental title, which we can litigate that forever. But yes, it should have.
Strap.
Yeah, no, it slides right into that spot.
Everything the Intercontinental title was is essentially the global title now. Like, we have time as a flat circle kind of stuff right now. From the time that Naito incorporated Naito and Ibushi or whatever happened, they incorporated it into one title and disappeared. Right now, I look at this image that we have of these two, and I'm just like, this is the Intercontinental title.
It almost feels like Tanahashi was like, we shouldn't have gotten rid of the Intercontinental. If I had been president, we wouldn't have gotten rid of the Intercontinental title. So I'm putting it back. So, I don't know if that's what's happened, but it just feels like that. But yes, it feels like it's taken that spot as the number 2 belt.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are both in can't miss territory. So I'm not talking it up much because we got to talk about it next week, but I do expect this to be a hell of a match.
And Benkin said, Goto better win. So there you go. We'll see. And then, of course, World Heavyweight title match. We're going to learn a lot about what Wrestle Kingdom has in store from this one. It's but not all of it. Not all of it. I think there's still some chapters. But Tetsuya Naito will defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Zack Sabre Jr. And I'm probably going to be talking myself in circles for the next week as to who's going to win this match, who should win this one. It's going to be the focus of our show next week. It's going to be a fascinating one considering all of the various elements and factors in play. Zack Sabre Jr., Tetsuya Naito. Is it time for Zack Sabre Jr. to win this thing? We will find out at King of Pro Wrestling on the 14th.
Can I ask you something that is a little bit behind the scenes about this whole scenario?
Go ahead.
So, gonna peel back the way here. Steven's not gonna be here the week of October 17th.
No, killing me, by the way. Killing me. That's very true. I'm going to be away, so I'm not going to be able to see this show.
Hey, okay, this is what I wanted to know. It's like,
no,
you're going to be on a cruise.
Yeah.
Like, how are you just gonna, like, how are you going to try and figure out to watch this match without getting spoiled and getting enough internet coverage to just sit down and watch this match and this match alone?
Okay, well, here's the plan. Here's the plan. First of all, when I go on a cruise, I intentionally do not buy the internet package, so my phone is nothing but a clock.
Okay.
It's a watch while I'm on this. Now, you can buy an internet package. I want nothing to do with it. The whole point of this thing, and of course, I booked this thing long before I had any idea that King of Pro Wrestling was going to be taking place on that week. So no control over that. There it is, right? It plops down right in the middle of that. So my plan is to avoid everything, and it's not hard to avoid spoilers. You can't really do it with sports because there is television out there. There's
right.
New Japan World.
No one's radar is New Japan World on this clip,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. So I can avoid it fine. So I am avoiding the internet altogether for that week that I'm gone. My plan is to watch this thing basically in the car on the way home from the cruise dock. You know, like while we're driving back to home, is to watch KOPW because there's several things going on in that whole area. Royal Quest is going on the day I come back to. Mm-hmm. So I will have plenty to do in that terms. But that is my plan, is to avoid the internet altogether for the week and then watch it basically on the way home from the cruise.
So I had a trip back in like 2008 that I took somewhere, and I ended up going to Mexico. And it was during this trip that CM Punk cashed in Money in the Bank and won the title for the first time. And one of my great regrets was having just enough internet access to want to know what happened, but have no real ability to do it. So I applaud you for having the self-control saying, nope, it's all or nothing, and going nothing.
We'll see what happens. The whole thing is like one of the toughest ones. I did such a good job once of, for various circumstances, I couldn't see a major show a couple of years before we were doing Speaking of Strong Style, and I avoided, and didn't look at anything. Didn't look at the Observer website. Stayed off of everything, and I went to hit a button on my phone to turn something off. I had no intention of doing it, and my thumb brushed across the logo for Twitter and popped up. And the one post, it could have been about 100 different things. I follow a couple hundred people on Twitter, from journalists to people on Liverpool and Chicago Cubs and everything else that I like. And what's the one thing over there? The main eventer posing with the belt he had just won for the show that I was just about to watch. Son of a motherless. I cursed a blue streak to the fact that my girlfriend was just like, are you having a stroke? I said, perhaps. I was so upset. It spoiled the main event of the show with one little swipe. If I had just not swiping his Twitter, I'd have watched the show clean and not had any idea. Oh my goodness.
Your one danger zone in all of this is when you reactivate from airplane mode, and then you get the drip of data. And like boom, everything just blows through your phone. And it's like, nope.
Yes.
Get it all out of my way. Get it all out of my way.
Yeah.
Put on the match. Put on the main event.
Exactly right. Yeah. I am just going to go right to NJPW World and go right to that and hope that nothing goes wrong in the meantime. We'll see. Wish me luck, everybody.
But yes, we'll be doing a show that week. Whether it is me or whether it is me with somebody who's taken pity on me and doesn't want me to go solo on this, we will be doing a show because it is very important that we talk about the consequential outcome of this thing. And if I get, a carrier pigeon with notes from Steven because they went horribly awry, I will share whatever feedback he has.
All right. So that's in 2 weeks. Now, next week, I will be here for the preview. The preview. All right.
And he'll be there for the week after he's gone. He's not leaving forever. It's just a week.
No, just a week. Yeah. No. Hopefully it's not the Gordon Soley thing where Gordon Soley said, next week, my good friend Tony Schiavone will be filling in for me. And we never saw Gordon again. Hopefully it's not anything like that.
Not really part of the plan.
No. Well, it is Sears Roebuck. You remember when Sears Roebuck? You remember that whole thing when the department store was Sears Roebuck and Company? Way back in the day?
Sears.
Yeah. You know what happened? Roebuck went on vacation. I'm not joking about that. Like Sears did a hostile takeover while Roy, he came back from his trip. Name was off the building. Poof. Those two weren't getting along at the time. Luckily, Jeremy and I get along, so it shouldn't happen here. Digressing.
I always make sure that Steven's on the left side of the screen, and we've never had a problem ever since.
That's exactly right. There we go. And that just keeps me happy. That's my good side right there. All right. So moving on to the Royal Quest. We have a few new matches for Royal Quest, too. We want to get to those. And now we know that Shota Umino and Callum Newman will be facing one another in a special singles match. So they built a little of that up during the previous tour, the Destruction Tour. And, of course, Shota, a lot of his excursion was in England. Callum Newman, British wrestler. They faced each other in Rev Pro before. And we get it again here at Royal Quest 4.
We also get a rematch from their G1 match.
Also true. And of course, Royal Quest will be on the Rev Pro streaming service. So you do have to subscribe to the Rev Pro streaming service for at least a month to get this show. The good news is it's actually cheaper than an NJPW Strong pay-per-view off of NJPW World to have 1 month of Rev Pro to watch this thing. So that's not so bad.
I still feel somewhat inconvenienced about the factor, but at least when you go to the preview on New Japan or on the New Japan site, from Medium, by the way, still on Medium, it is abundantly clear that it is going to be airing on Rev Pro. So thank you, New Japan, for quietly making it clear if you do diligent research rather than putting it front and center on your face so people don't complain about why they can't watch a show on World. That's not going to end well for you whatsoever.
All right, but it's turning out to be a pretty decent lineup for this.
Absolutely.
What else we got? Yota Tsuji in a singles match against Drill Maloney.
One of those matches I wasn't expecting to see anytime soon, but not complaining.
No, should be pretty good. Again, Yota Tsuji, another guy who did a lot of Rev Pro on his worked for Rev Pro a lot during his excursion. And Kosei Fujita against Michael Oku. All right, let's go.
Yeah, I don't think Michael Oku is going to be doing a whole lot more matches for Rev Pro if I can read the tea leaves on this one. So I am excited to see him. I presume I'll be watching the show at some way, shape, or form. Especially if Steven's got to play catch up. I got to talk about this show, so I'll be talking about it. I like Michael Oku. I think he's fine. I'm not like living and dying on Michael Oku as a lot of other people are. So this is another opportunity for him to convince me that he's the real deal.
I think it'll be a good match at least. I think Fujita could have a good match with him.
Look, if Michael Oku and Kosei Fujita, like these are not bad wrestlers, but just they're not in the top 20 worldwide for me. If it's the best way to put it.
Well, fair enough, but it's also not being asked to carry a whole lot of freight here. It's especially
no. I'm just making conversation here. I just think Michael Oku is probably headed to AEW at some point in the future. Good spotlight match for these guys. They're gonna mesh well, but it's a match on the card.
And also, we have Mina Shirakawa, and let's see what is it? I'm trying to
Kanji versus Danny Luna and Azumi.
All right, Danny Luna and Azumi. Yeah, I had Danny Luna and Azumi. It's Kanji. I was struggling with name wise there. So
yeah, the resolution on these photos were not great on the Medium website. I will tell you that right now.
So a little bit of Stardom to work with the Rev Pro women there. That's good.
Mina Shirakawa taking over the world continually, and she is the Rev Pro Women's Champion. So she is going to be around Rev Pro consistently, and I kind of expect someone on the other side to maybe get an opportunity at a title match with her coming up soon, because that's what these tag matches are for.
Well, it's Danny because she's teaming with Kanji, so it'll be. But I could set up a challenger for her certainly. Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols, TMDK, they are facing Hiroshi Tanahashi and Tomohiro Ishii for the strong openweight tag team title, not the IWGP. This is for the strong openweight tag team championship. Nichols and Haste against Tanahashi and Ishii, coming off that number one contenders match they had. So, this is mostly a chance, I think, for the English crowd to get a look at President Tanahashi. Yeah,
I think there's a President Tanahashi and Ishii factor on this one. I think that there was a plan and a deal made after this match was done, after this match was announced, because I'm not necessarily sure that you want to have Tanahashi in too many tag matches losing to anyone in the near future based off of some of the stuff that they're teasing over the next 3 months. And we'll get to that in a second, but I expect Tanahashi to be fine in this match. I expect, TMDK to look strong in some way, shape, or form. But I am definitely looking at Tanahashi differently with some of the plans that they have in mind for him.
And Colin says Kanji's amazing, and Venkin mentions that Mina took her chance to get into a lot of companies, and it pays off. Yeah, she has really grabbed the brass ring, so to speak. She's done very, very well. Well, she's a terrific wrestler. And Venkin says, I feel Wrestle Dream might be Mariah May versus Mina. They got to do that eventually, really, don't they? Considering the history between the two of them, I would look forward to see that one.
They are. I would not be surprised if there was something in Historic X-Over with them. But I also think that Willow is in the equation somehow and may be the stopgap to prevent them from going directly to Mina and Mariah right away.
And Toni Storm is going to get back in this mix eventually. She's taking the time off and things. She's in Stardom right now. She's going to wrestle Mayu. And Jeremy, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see Toni Storm won promo of the year for me? Did you see her at the press conference talking about her love affair with Stan Hansen?
I saw it. I was amused by it, but I know that this made your day. So I'm going to give you the platform to let everyone know the humor in which makes Stephen Conway heart go, ha ha.
to bring Stan Hansen into it. No, it was just a great promo. I go and find it. It's on a lot of social media with Tony and anything that covers Stardom. But so Venkin has the best line in the whole thing is the last one, where she says that during her love affair, he gave her some important advice, and then he gave me a lariat, but not with his arm. And I just thought this woman's a genius. She's hysterical in this timeless Tony Storm character. And the best part of it is Mayu, who doesn't particularly speak English. Well, just holding a microphone, staring at her, like even she could tell that she was saying something crazy. She just didn't know what. And Tony's been great with all of these things. So where she, it's just been a wonderful ride here. And I'm really happy that Tony's back. And if all this weaves together with Nina and Mariah and Tony and Mayu and all this between Historic Crossover, Wrestle Dynasty, this could turn into a lot of fun.
So I'm going to veer into a little bit of an AEW thing here. One of the big concerns that I have when AEW wrestlers lose main titles, like the women's world title and the men's world title, is the what's next factor. Like, what do you have lined up for these guys now that they're no longer fighting for the main title? And I absolutely love that Toni Storm basically just fucked off to Stardom and rehabilitated her image there and is doing whatever she needs away from AEW and Tony Khan and the main event scene there, so that her presence isn't defined by the world title as of now.
Yeah.
She is, again, a wrestler defining herself and changing what we last knew of her as the person that lost the world title doing the movie star gimmick. She's still doing the movie star gimmick, but she's curating it into like the veteran actress that understands that she makes the rules now. Like, she can call her shots.
She's doing the Gloria Swanson gimmick, from Sunset Boulevard, basically, and then just turning that up to 15, not just 11.
Absolutely.
And then Venkin mentions it. Then Mayu got the shoe, and see, if Mayu had spoken better English, she would have known to watch for the shoe. She didn't know. All right. So moving on from that one, that's Royal Quest. And we'll be, of course, Zack Sabre Jr. against Sonata. If Zack Sabre Jr. wins the title at KOPW, this will indeed be an IWGP title match. So that's taking place at Quest also.
If it's like next level mental chess by New Japan.
They're really on fire.
They just dangle this like, well, of course Zack is going to be champion. That's why he's facing Sonata, who is a previous IWGP champion, and this will legitimize his run going in there, and then you could just still have the match.
Or will he?
Doesn't win the title.
Yeah. Colin mentions Mayu with the shoe is just like, what the hell do I do with this? And like, what am I supposed to do with this? Why is there a shoe over here? All right. So yeah, Zack and that. So, and Fighting Spirit Unleashed, of course, coming up November 8th, Lowell, Massachusetts at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. We have some names, Jeremy. Who did they announce would officially be part of the festivities in Lowell?
I'm pretty sure everyone on the screen was announced for it. So we got Shota, we got Zack Sabre Jr., we got Yota Tsuji, we got Anna Jay, who is now currently the Joshi darling in the Western world because of her time over in Stardom?
Yeah, she was in the 5-star Grand Prix. Did all right.
Yeah, she did great. She transferred that to an AEW promo that I thought was, honestly pretty good and showed that she had some confidence. So, she is going to be one of the next people that are going to be holding up the New Japan aspect of the roster, and good for her. This is how the women's division gets better over in AEW, quite frankly. We got Kenta, who is always someone that they love to bring on these strong shows, probably on the lower end. And then you're pretty much guaranteed Tomohiro Ishii, Gabe Kidd, and David Finlay as well. So going to be a good show. The $20 deal in the middle of November. What else are you going to be doing other than watching college football and NFL that weekend?
Yeah, nothing else going on. Nothing else going on in the world. Yeah, nothing else going on in the world that week. Yeah. But yes, yeah. And so, okay, now we got to talk about this. So, in Stardom, we have Historic Crossover coming up soon. We run into something else here. So, unfortunately, Natsupoi ran flat into Clark Connors because during a match with Tekla, Natsupoi versus Tekla, the storyline apparently is that Tekla said, I'm going to wrestle clean. Tekla is part of the heel hate faction, which is a cross between Bullet Club and House of Torture over there. Big heel faction in Stardom currently. And she said, I'm going to wrestle you clean, Natsupoi. But what she didn't say was that she was going to have someone else do her dirty work. So in this match with Natsupoi, poor Natsupoi is speared by Clark Connors from the Bullet Club War Dogs, thus setting up what I'm assuming is going to be a mixed tag team match of some sort at Historic Crossover. Absolutely nothing's been announced, but he speared Poi there in the Korakuen Hall ring, and we would imagine that this will be Tekla and Connors, or Tekla, Connors, and Maloney. We don't know. It's setting up something that will develop between the Cosmic Angels crew, of which Natsupoi is a member, and the Hate crew, of which Tekla is a member. We got Connors involved, so we'll see where this goes. It is the first step, though, toward anything at Historic Crossover, really, that's concrete. So now we know that we're at least going to get something about like this for Historic Crossover, and it means that the companies are starting to pay a little bit of attention that it's time to start building that card.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited does this make you for how they're approaching Historic Crossover?
I am. I'm interested in Historic Crossover. I'm always interested in it. So as far as Connors and Tekla against Poi and somebody, Poi's a terrific worker. Connors is pretty good, and I know that Colin mentions that he's not happy with the spear at all, and that a man spearing a woman and all that kind of stuff. I actually talked about this with Scott Edwards on a show. The one bit I have less of a problem with it being a heel. Natsupoi is a trained professional, and she should be able to work with everybody. I'm not the biggest fan of the intergender violence stuff either. I understand that it matters less. It's a work. If everybody's careful involved, it bothers me less than other things. I hated Hiroshi Tanahashi slapping Micah last year. Hated it just because I thought it was a horrible image and a really stupid thing for Tanahashi to do. And I know that spearing somebody theoretically, but within the world of professional wrestling, giving another professional wrestler a wrestling move bothered me a whole lot less than the hero of heroes dismissively slapping a woman across the face. That just really pissed me off. This is a heel doing it to a babyface. He did it carefully, and if you watch this thing, he made sure that not only had Poi turned around, but they made eye contact. He launched it into a tackle, really. She took the bump. If you watch it, he did not really spike her. She took the bump. She took it hard, but Poi wrestles hard. And the other thing is, that cracks me up a little bit, Jeremy, watching it. I forget sometimes Connor's not very big. No. If somebody's going to hit her, Connors is not a big junior heavyweight even, let alone anything else. So this bothered me less. It was a trained professional and a trained professional. It was not done in a very domestic violence-y kind of way, which is the way Tanahashi chose to smack Micah across the face. And I disliked it less. Again, I'm not a fan of this stuff. And when they wrestle, I would rather see the Stardom women wrestle and then the New Japan guys wrestle each other than anything crossways. But I have a feeling that's kind of where we're headed, that there's going to be a little bit more contact between the men and the women going forward. I think that's what Tanahashi likes, and I think that's kind of where this is going. Maybe not full on, but I think there's going to be a little bit more of that than we saw perhaps last year.
I don't love that it happened. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that we should have more of this in any way, shape, or form. But intergender matches are happening, right? This is a reality of the 2020s in pro wrestling. The equality will lead to intergender matches in which the perception is that they are more on the level with each other. Steven, have you ever watched the show Supernatural?
No.
Okay. It's a horror show. It was on for 15 years. Jensen Ackles and the really tall guy, Padalecki, they were brothers hunting monsters, okay? Every episode started with a 3-minute sequence in which somebody died gruesomely. And it set the tone for the rest of the episode. But the rest of the episode was decidedly not as horror-centric from that introductory moment. It simply built on the tension that you experienced at the beginning of the episode and not wanting it to happen again. And I think that's a lot of the mentality of what this angle was, is that you needed a shot out the gate of something that was going to take your breath away, that was going to leave you with a reaction of that Clark Connors and that Thekla. Like, I really don't like what they did. And there's a limited amount of things that you can do that cross that threshold without becoming completely and totally offensive to the point of no return. I think they threaded that needle pretty well. I don't want to see continued man-on-women attacks throughout thing in order to get matches over. But I think for the initial, like, onset of civilities in this historic X-Over, having Clark Connors tackle someone in Stardom is just a clear flag in the ground that says, hey, historic X-Over is here, and this is how we're building.
Yeah, and again, trained professionals like Natsupoi wrestles a tough style. I mean, she's the high speed fairy and all that kind of stuff, but she works hard and she works stiff and she can take a shot and she is a trained professional. Some of my biggest problems are when they're like hitting a woman that's not trained, and you saw how that went with Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels when Jericho ended up clocking Michaels' wife for real, and it looked ugly. And my issue last year was with the Tanahashi thing was, this is the hero of all heroes belting a woman across the face. Like, at least you had a roster full of heels that could have done something like that and been, because they're assholes, they're heels, they're bad guys, they're bad people in character, right? So if they do something like this, where Clark did it perfectly good, everybody did their job, he protected her, she took the bump, fine. But instead, they saw the guy that was giving air hugs to little kids through the pandemic smack a woman across the face. What the hell were they thinking with that shit?
Not great.
It was so stupid.
There's a difference between Clark Connors and Hiroshi Tanahashi, and the image of what's happening.
Yeah,
and
but again,
I don't want to know your place rather than I'm going to put this woman down.
But I do not want to see David Finlay give Shuri the oblivion for to give just to throw out an example. I don't want that,
and I don't think that would happen.
Okay. And then Venkin mentioned, we're going to get some comments about this because this has stirred up some stuff. Venkin says Ospreay commented that Anna Jay's footwork is improved. Just something that I saw. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where iron sharpens iron, and Anna Jay is not going to improve having a match every few weeks on Dynamite against somebody who's okay. But you go over to Stardom and have a series of good matches against top-level women, it will improve. You will improve. Look what it did for Mariah May. Look what it did for Megan Bain. And they were there longer. Anna Jay was only there for a short run, but
active practice leading to direct matches afterwards will make you better.
And then Venkin mentions that this is a long storyline from when Natsupoi left Donna Del Mundo, which is true. Tekla was a member of the Donna Del Mundo faction when Natsupoi turned on them and joined up with Cosmic Angels. But really, she was always a Cosmic Angel. Right? She's more Cosmic Angel-y than Tam Nakano, who founded Cosmic Angels.
Pretty sure Tekla was kind of Bullet Club, too.
Yeah, a little bit. And then also Colin says, Clark Connors, he's a grown-ass man. Poi weighs 100 pounds if you're lucky. Probably not 100. He says, just don't do it. Have a member of Hate wear a War Dogs t-shirt and have them do it. I hated this. Yeah, I mean, I get you. It's not my favorite thing in the world either. But I do think that Connors was, keep in mind, this isn't Connors' idea either. He was assigned to do this, and I think he handled the assignment well, took care of her and all. And Venkin says, I mean, Desperado pulling hair was entertaining enough for me last time. Yeah. That one was really well worked. That was the whole thing with them teaming up. What was it? The Desperado and what do they have? The thing with Kanemaru and that crew, the Taichi and the gang and all that in the last year. They handled that one pretty well. That was good stuff. So it can be done well. And remember Tom Lawler and what was it? Tom Lawler and Zach against, it was Zach and Julia against Tom Lawler and Shuri. That one was handled fairly well too. So it was fine.
I'm not worried about a single match about historic X-Over. Nor am I going to invalidate in any way, shape, or form someone who does not like what happened here. I am in the middle 100%, and I'm not going to push back on anyone who says that this was not for them.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, again, trained professionals, they're fine. I mean, they can work.
Everyone has a different threshold for what they find acceptable in wrestling.
You remember during the pandemic too, B. Priestley and Ospreay, when they were still together, they had a match against each other. It was a hell of a good match, and they did not go easy on each other at all right there, and that was terrific. Again, when everybody's working together, it's fine, and when it's done in a way that makes sense and doesn't make the ultimate babyface look like a complete asshole.
It's almost like when you can wrestle and go to therapy at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. So, all right. So that was Clark Connors. We'll see how historic crossover develops right there. So the other thing
you want to go way down? Want to go way down the map? What it seems like with some of these coordinations.
Well, yeah, and what we mentioned here last week, we talked about how Tanahashi and Kenny Omega met up, and they teased it. Last week when we did the show, we had only gotten a little tease of what they talked about. Well, we got a lot more this week. Jeremy, could you tell us a little bit about Kenny Omega and Hiroshi Tanahashi's tete-a-tete?
So about 10 hours ago on YouTube, this video dropped. And when I got up this morning, a little under the weather today, so I was, able to, leisurely take my time in some aspects as I'm trying to get my wits together. I go on World and I'm like, oh, this video that we're talking about, not on World. I'm like, okay. So go to YouTube, and it's a 7-minute, 8-minute video, and it's literally the footage of these two reuniting after their match from 5 years ago. And it's just like, yes, we had the AEW Dynamite anniversary yesterday of 5 years ago, but there's something incredibly sobering about these two guys meeting up, and they're just like, yeah, it was 5 years ago. And the look on their face, like, goddamn, it was 5 years ago that they did this. And there was a lot of shared mutual respect and a lot of explanations about what was going on with Kenny in AEW regarding the Young Bucks, who were at Kenny's side for his match against Tanahashi and walked him out from the arena that day. And so Tanahashi was talking about how things have changed, that the Young Bucks are no longer at his side anymore. And what eventually came to was that Kenny Omega and Hiroshi Tanahashi agreed that they would tag to potentially face the Young Bucks at some point in the future. And if I had to guess, Steven, that seems like a Wrestle Dynasty match to me.
Does seem like a Wrestle Dynasty match, and probably a good idea to be in a tag with Tanahashi and Omega right here, so neither one has to carry a full long singles match with, because who knows where Kenny is in his recovery. I'm just glad he's even talking about wrestling again. I'm happy to the idea of seeing Kenny Omega back in the ring. And we know that Tanahashi has his good knee days and bad knee days, and there have been a few more bad ones than good ones lately. So perhaps a 15-minute middle of the card Wrestle Dynasty tag match where they only have to go about 7 or 8 minutes of it might be just the thing.
You have to remember that maybe the match of the year in 2018 had 3 of the 4 guys in this match, and they were all decidedly stronger and faster back then. But it was Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks at Strong Style Evolved at the Long Beach at the Long Beach University, Cal State Long Beach. This match won't be that, but I do think that there is some mystique to having all of these 4 guys back. The Bucks have not been back to Japan since that Wrestle Kingdom. They have no interest in coming back to Japan unless the matches were right. This could be that right match, and it's like, this is the right way to reintroduce Kenny Omega with some mystique, because if you throw him right back into AEW, he's just a guy right now. I don't expect him to be in the C2 with his body being the way that it is. So this may be the match that we're just kind of leading him and easing him back in to all these things. And Tanahashi in a tag match with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, he'll be fine. Even if Tanahashi is quote unquote washed or anything like that, this is exactly the type of match that he's been able to carry himself and be perfectly fine along with Toriano and Bolton Oleg for the last 3 months. This is not going to be a problem. It's going to be a very interesting match. And with Okada gone and a lot of the lineage of what's going on, especially with David Finlay and Jay White seeming to have eyes for each other, going into Wrestle Dynasty as well. This is a perfect use of Kenny Omega.
We will monitor that situation as it develops. So anything else we want to cover before we get into more of the history of our president, Hiroshi Tanahashi?
Just that Jay White is a full-fledged babyface in AEW as of last night. So any belief that Jay White and David Finlay isn't happening in the near future is naive and poorly sourced, because everything is telling you that those two are coming at each other. And probably Zack Sabre Jr. and MJF. That seems like a lot of good matches for Wrestle Dynasty.
Yep, I'm excited. I am excited. So, Tanahashi, should we go back and talk a little bit more? He had a couple of very interesting years when we last left off, and then he was headed toward a couple more really interesting ones as well. So when we left off with Hiroshi Tanahashi, we got and Venkin is saying he thinks Gabe Kidd MJF for Wrestle Dynasty. I don't know. I think they're probably going to go. I think that's far more likely to be Zach than Gabe.
I don't think that Gabe Kidd is big enough for MJF. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. MJF is wrestling main eventrix at this point.
All right. So when we left off, we were toward the end of Hiroshi Tanahashi's record reign. He was the World Heavyweight Champion. He had just defeated Minoru Suzuki at Wrestle Kingdom, and he was challenged afterwards by the new guy back from Excursion, Kazuchika Okada. So he was still the champion. So he comes out of Wrestle Kingdom. He's got Okada on the horizon, but he had some interesting matches during Fantastica Mania that year, by the way. He started wrestling Okada in preview matches right off the bat. It happened immediately. And he had Okada and Volador Jr. against Tanahashi and La Sombra. So Andrade right there. Plus Okada, Nakamura, and El Mephisto against Tanahashi, Tetsuya Naito, and El Diamante. So there were some interesting little matches there at Fantastica Mania as they move forward toward that big match. So they previewed the big match February 12th, New Beginning in Osaka. And that is where he lost the title to Okada in what is still called the February Surprise. Most people figured that Okada was there to be a title defense in the record run, not to get the win. Again, guy was just back. But they were very confident. Gedo was very confident in Okada. In fact, it was shared with somebody. I don't remember who. Maybe Jericho or something like that. Somebody he knew just kind of said, "What do you think of Okada?" And he said, "It's going to be champion." And they said, "Oh, you feel that good about him someday?" Thinking maybe years ahead. And Gedo just kind of smiled because he knew, in about 30 days. That's how long. So a week later, after losing the title to Okada, he was at All Together 2, and he was main eventing a 6-man match with Suwama and Takeshi Morishima in a win over Go Shiozaki, Tetsuya Naito, and Seiya Sanada, who was not yet Sanada, but he was teaming with Tetsuya Naito. So we actually got Naito and Sanada as a team before LIJ, and when Sanada was still an All Japan wrestler. Kenta Kobashi teamed with Keiji Muto underneath in a win over Takao Omori and Jun Akiyama. We're about to see Akiyama this coming weekend. So with now having lost the title, he made the finals of the New Japan Cup that year, but he lost to Hirooki Goto. That was the year Goto won the cup. And he was still otherwise facing off with combinations of Okada and Nakamura, along with other Chaos members in these multi-man matches on top of house shows all over Japan. But 2012 was going to be a very strong run, box office-wise, for New Japan. Mentioned that Wrestle Kingdom had gone up about 5,000 in attendance to 23,000 that year. So not huge there, but there were signs this year that things were really picking up. And most of the time, his partners were guys like Hirooki Goto, Naito, who was not LIJ Naito yet, Captain New Japan, who was usually in there to take falls. He was the Jado of that group, if you will. And Tama Tonga, who was pre-Bullet Club Tama. And that was because he was headed for a big rematch with Okada at Dominion. So for basically the first half of the year, Okada and Tanahashi tangled in these multi-person tags at house show after house show after house show. And then at Dominion, Tanahashi defeated Okada and won the IWGP title back. That was in front of 6,850 people. So a strong crowd there in Osaka for that. Interesting match in the opener, Jeremy. Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, the Golden Lovers, teamed with Daisuke Sasaki to defeat Prince Devitt, Kushida, and Bushi, who is not yet LIJ Bushi. So there you have it. Let's see what else we have there. Liger and Tiger Mask were a tag team, and they defeated Takamichi Noku and Taichi for the junior heavyweight tag team titles. Back in the day, that Taichi was struggling to make the weight there in the junior division. MVP and Shelton Benjamin, who just joined AEW, they were a team. They beat Carl Anderson and Tama Tonga underneath. And Low Ki was the junior champion back then. He beat Ryusuke Taguchi. So, yeah. And an important note, Togi Makabe defeated Minoru Suzuki in the semifinal that night to earn the next title shot. And Tanahashi won that one on July 1st in front of a full 11,000 people at Sumo Hall.
Nice.
So things are really looking good now, right? He goes into the G1. He's the champion again, right? So does he win? No, he does not. But he scores 10 points in Block A along with Carl Anderson. But Anderson defeated Tanahashi on the last day of block play to win that tiebreaker and go into the final. So Carl Machine Gun Anderson went to the finals. Some other people in Block A, by the way, Yuji Nagata, Shelton Benjamin, Kojima, Suzuki, Naomichi Marufuji, who got a win over Tanahashi in that one. They were all in A block. And then in B block, Kazuchika Okada won with 10 points. The crew at 8, these are all the people that ended up on 8 points. This is a very dramatic final day. So Okada won with 10 points, but Lance Archer, Goto, Makabe, MVP, Naito, Tenzan, and Nakamura all finished with 8. Whew. The only guy that didn't have 8 or 10 points was Roosh. He finished with 6. So a very tight race all the way through. Tanahashi lost to Anderson, I mentioned on the last day. That kept him out of the final. And Okada defeated Carl Anderson to win his first G1. If you'd also notice, it carefully kept Tanahashi and Okada apart. They were in different blocks. They didn't end up meeting in the final. Okada was the youngest winner ever at 24, the first since Goto to win his first G1, and Anderson was the first foreigner to make the final of the tournament since Rick Rude in 1992. So a lot of new directions going on in New Japan, but with Tanahashi as the champion. He then went over to CMLL for a while and was in the Universal Tournament. He advanced to the final. He defeated Marco Corleone, who was Mark Jindrak, if you remember that guy, Diamante Azul, and Volador before he lost to Damien El Terrible in the final. So he almost went to the final of the G1, did go to the final of the Universal Tournament for CMLL. He defended the IWGP title the rest of the year. He defeated Suzuki in an absolute classic at KOPW that year. I believe that was one of the match of the year candidates, and then went right back into feuding with Chaos. So at King of Pro Wrestling, though, they had 9,000 people in Sumo Hall for that one. So these big shows were doing well. By that time, Yujiro Takahashi had left Chaos and had turned on Naito. So they were in a feud. That led to a grudge match, which Yujiro won. So you imagine Yujiro Takahashi getting a win on Tetsuya Naito there at the King of Pro Wrestling show. Nakamura, meanwhile, was not in the picture. Okada was the world heavyweight champion. Tanahashi won it back. Nakamura had gained the Intercontinental title and was making that his own. This would become very, very important in short order. So he defeated Goto in the semifinal on that show. So Nakamura was establishing the Intercontinental title as a draw in and of itself. Okada now was the G1 winner, and he defended his number one contendership in several singles matches as the year wore on. So not only did they keep Tanahashi and Okada apart, but they put both of them in jeopardy throughout the rest of the year. So Okada may have lost his number one contendership. Tanahashi may have lost his world title, all that stuff. But Okada beat Anderson in a number one contenders match at KOPW. And on November 11th, Tanahashi defeated Yujiro Takahashi in a world heavyweight title match that went 25 minutes. Can you imagine?
Yujiro, huh?
A Yujiro Takahashi match going 25. Now, if you watch him, it's a very different Yujiro than what we're getting here with Bullet Club, but or House of Torture or anything like that. But oh boy, if Tanahashi ever carried a match harder than he ever carried anything, that had to have been it. 25 minutes with Yujiro right there.
Let's see what they rated that match while you.
Oh boy, I'd be curious. Go ahead and find that one. Okada defeated Goto to keep that number one contender spot. So That set the official collision course for Wrestle Kingdom. Now, both of them have navigated all the various potholes on the way to the Wrestle Kingdom match. We were going to get Tanahashi versus Okada at the Dome for the first time. And at Wrestle Kingdom 7, Tanahashi defeated Okada to retain the title. So after the February surprise, Okada kind of hit his head on the Tanahashi ceiling, so to speak. He lost the belt back to him, won the G1, but couldn't regain the belt again. And some interesting notes from Wrestle Kingdom 7, by the way. Hiromu Takahashi was in the Young Lion match in that one. So you can go back and watch that one on World, I believe. Masato Tanaka defeated Shelton Benjamin in a never open weight title match. Now, that belt had just been created in November of 2012. So there in January of 2013, that never open weight title was just starting to be a thing. And Shelton Benjamin was in the title match there with Tanaka, who was a member of Chaos back then. Tanaka was part of Nakamura's group. For the junior heavyweight title, Prince Devitt defeated Bushi and Low Ki. And that was the title match there. And Tenkozy beat Muto and Otani, Chijiro Otani, in a tag team title match. Of course, Otani severely injured in a match years later, but he was still part of a big match at Wrestle Kingdom back in 2013. Drew 29,000. So again, the last 3 years, 18,000, 23,000, now 29,000. Things are looking better. Moved on from that to, once again, he's still wrestling mostly Chaos guys. So Tanahashi's multi-person main events at the house shows, mostly against Chaos crew. But something important was about to happen. At the 41st anniversary show that March, he defeated Prince Devitt in the usual heavyweight title versus junior heavyweight title match. Okay. And that's the match where neither belt's on the line, right? Except Tanahashi said he would relinquish the heavyweight title if he lost. It's just to put extra stakes on it, I guess. But he won. Afterwards, Prince Devitt refused to shake his hand, kind of shoved him away. Something was wrong with Prince Devitt. Something was wrong with him. And after that, he started acting a little more churlish out there. The only person he seemed to get along with was his tag team partner, Ryusuke Taguchi, right? So the team of Carl Anderson and Tama Tonga had become a regular team and a regular foe of Tanahashi as well. But at an invasion attack at Sumo Hall, Okada defeated Tanahashi to win the IWGP title back. And on that show, Prince Devitt turned on Taguchi and brought in his enforcer, Bad Luck Fale, who had been King Fale before, after coming back from after leaving the Young Lion run. He was King Fale, then he became Bad Luck Fale, and he was the bouncer of the crew, which was not yet called Bullet Club, by the way. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention one thing. Can I go back a little bit? The
Sure.
41st anniversary show. The opening match was a Young Lion match. Hiromu Takahashi and Takaki Watanabe, who's now known as Evil, against Yohei Komatsu and Sho Tanaka. So we had Hiromu and Evil against Sho and Yo as the Young Lion match that time. So 4 for 4 with that batch of Young Lions, though, right? I mean, all of them turned out.
I mean, they do pretty well with the Young Lions in general, to be honest.
There are a few that kind of come and go and never make an impact, but their batting average is very strong. So
the batting average on the American ones from the last half of the decade was a little spotty as well.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, there were a couple of misses in there. So we moved on to Dontaku. So at Dontaku, Tanahashi faced Carl Anderson for that top contender spot. Okay. And this wasn't like an official no. It was a special singles match, number one contender, and to get that shot back at Okada. Tanahashi won, but afterwards, Fale and Prince Devitt attacked. Tama Tonga came in and joined in the attack. And then Carl Anderson joined in, and then we had Bullet Club. So Devitt and Fale were already in an alliance and already heel. But after Tanahashi faced Anderson, what was supposed to be a babyface versus babyface match, afterwards, the whole crew attacks him. Anderson joins the attack, turns heel. Tama Tonga's a heel, and we have Bullet Club after that. So now Tanahashi had a new focus. And after most of a year, facing the Chaos crew, he's trying to get back at Bullet Club. But you got to put him over first. So Prince Devitt beat Tanahashi at Dominion in front of 7,240 people in Osaka with help from the Bullet Club. And that was his Dominion match, putting over Prince Devitt to help establish Bullet Club as a real threat. Katsuyori Shibata had returned to the company, and he beat Hiroki Goto, while Naito got his revenge on Yujiro, defeating him at Dominion that year. And Okada beat Makabe in the main event for the IWGP title. So Okada's the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Tanahashi still a top contender, but he just lost to Prince Devitt. We go into the G1 climax. This time, Tanahashi wins Block A outright. He edges out, listen to this crew, Shibata, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Prince Devitt, and Togi Makabe all had 10 points. Okada finished with 9. And then on the other side, Block B, you had a whole mess of people here at 10 points. Naito, Suzuki, Carl Anderson, Shelton Benjamin, Shinsuke Nakamura, Yuji Nagata, all with 10 points. Naito managed to get the tiebreaker out of all of that mess. Kota Ibushi, Toriano, and Yujiro had 8 points there. But there were also a couple of injuries in that one, by the way. Tenzan got hurt. Somebody else did too in that one. But this time, Tanahashi lost in the finals to Naito. And his extra point, right? I mentioned there were a whole bunch of people on 10 points. Tanahashi had 11. That extra point came because he had a 30-minute draw with Okada in the G1. So what does that leave us with? Well, that puts Naito as the G1 winner and Kazuchika Okada as the World Heavyweight Champion. Those two are now on a collision course for Wrestle Kingdom 8. Tanahashi continued his war with Prince Devitt all the way to destruction in Kobe in 2013. So we're talking, 11 years ago. They had a lumberjack death match in front of 8,000 people. And Tanahashi did win that one and finally rid himself of Devitt. However, Naito defeated Masato Tanaka from Chaos to keep his number 1 contendership and win the Never Openweight title. Naito was only the second Never Openweight champion, by the way. Tanaka had became the first champion in a tournament and hadn't lost it. That was from November until Destruction in Kobe that year, almost a full year, but he was the second Never Openweight champion. And so Tanahashi got a title shot at Okada. So the question was, who would Naito face at Wrestle Kingdom? Would it be Okada? Would it be Tanahashi? But he lost to King of Pro Wrestling, to Okada. He said afterwards, I won't challenge Okada for the IWGP title again. He didn't make a blanket thing like Cody did in AEW, where he says, I'll never challenge for again. He said, I'm not going to challenge Okada for it. He got the best of me in this one. I have to find a new focus. The Intercontinental Champion was Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura just said, oh, you looking for something to do? And really, he called him out. So now Tanahashi turned his focus toward the Intercontinental title. So Tanahashi and Captain New Japan entered the World Tag League tournament for the second year in a row. And I'm only mentioning this because I thought it was funny. The previous year, they had lost out, didn't win a match because Captain New Japan got pinned every match. And they just went over. In this year, they almost did it again. Lost all their matches except for the very last one when they beat Prince Devitt and Fale just to keep them out of the finals, just to piss them off. That was the only match they won in 2 years, was over Fale and Devitt to keep Bullet Club out of the finals. So that whole thing of Bullet Club tripping on the banana peel, slipping on the banana peel just before the end, that mantle's been taken over by House of Torture. But that was the thing way back in 2013.
That's where it was born.
That's where it was born. And then, so where does that leave us coming out of World Tag League, which is always late in the year, right? Well, that would set up Shinsuke Nakamura versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the Intercontinental title. And the main event of Kazuchika Okada defending the World Heavyweight title against Tetsuya Naito.
Is this the year that this all happened?
Or was that the main event? What was the main event? You had Tanahashi and Nakamura, Okada and Naito. Naito, the babyface, who'd been teaming with Tanahashi for years. Nakamura, the leader of Chaos. Okada, is he the number 1 guy in Chaos now, or is Nakamura? That was a discussion that was had back then. Geto was manager of Okada. That was unquestioned. But Nakamura was kind of the number 1 guy, but he had the number 2 belt. But he's wrestling the ace. What's the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 8? That decision would end up having ripples that are still being felt in New Japan today. That very decision, which we will talk about when we come back to all this, because that
what a hook.
Yeah.
What a
make
hook
sure you stay tuned for that one. All right, that's my history of Tanahashi for this week. We get him through 2012 and 2013, and we're going into 2014 with some seismic events in New Japan history.
Hot start to next week's history lesson.
I appreciate everybody for being for listening to all this week after week. I have a blast putting this all together. I hope people find it interesting.
I can tell. Do it. All right. What else we got? Anything?
No, I mean, that was it. Next week, we are going to break down Hardcore, the King of Pro Wrestling show. We're going to look at every single match on this as we get these dominoes continue to fall, as we move toward January and Wrestle Kingdom and the tag team tournaments. And all of these things are of great consequence. And frankly, they put together a hell of a good card for King of Pro Wrestling. So it's definitely worth spending time to stretch our legs and look over that one match by match and get comfortable and talk about every single one of them. We're going to do that next week.
Yep. Do it.
All right. So with that in mind, we're going to sign off for now. I want to thank everybody who's joined us here live on YouTube, everybody that listens to us later as a podcast. We really appreciate that you've decided to spend some time with us. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. Don't forget Power Bombshells on Sunday, Dynamite Show, and Double G Show, and all that stuff, the Fight Game Media. And we will talk to you again real soon.